As I walked to the entrance, I saw my husband standing there with a woman I didn't recognize. She was young and beautiful. When I asked who she was, my husband smiled and said, "This is my new wife. From now on, we'll live together in this house." "What are you talking about? I don't understand," I replied, shocked. "That's why I'm telling you. I'm divorcing you. I've become the president and taken over this house," he said. "What do you mean?" "Just leave quickly. We don't need you anymore, Auntie," he added. With those harsh words, my husband and his new wife kicked me out of the house. My name is Sandy, and I'm a 30-year-old office worker. I work at a company owned by my father and help him both at work and in his personal life. Ever since my mother passed away, it's just been the two of us. To support my father, I started cooking and cleaning in middle school and also made his lunches. My father appreciated my efforts and helped me with my studies. Thanks to him, I got into a good high school and later went on to university. After graduating, I decided to work at my father's company to repay him. The workplace was full of kind people, and I felt satisfied when we'd all worked together to achieve great results. I was happy working there. One day, I met a man named Joey, who had just joined the company. He was 2 years older than me, and I was immediately drawn to his warm personality and way of speaking. He was enthusiastic about his work and quickly became friends with our colleagues. I thought he was a great person. At first, we were just colleagues, but after a year-end party, we started talking more personally, and soon we began going out to eat together. Although I was hesitant about romance at first, I found myself wanting to spend more time with him. I even started suggesting dates. We grew closer, and one day he confessed his feelings to me. We started dating. After we began dating, I became even more motivated at work. I was serious during work hours, but I also enjoyed spending time with him during lunch breaks and after work. He knew many fun places to go on dates and took me to restaurants I hadn't tried before, even though I'd worked in that town for a long time. Our relationship went well, and about a year after we started dating, we began talking about marriage. We even told my father about our plans. Joey nervously told my father, "I'm going out with Sandy, and we're considering marriage." I also shared our intentions, and my father was overjoyed. He gave us his blessing with a big smile. Feeling relieved with my father's approval, our relationship continued smoothly. About a year and a half after we started dating, Joey proposed to me. He handed me a ring and said, "Let's get married soon and reassure your father." I happily accepted his proposal and immediately told my father. My father was thrilled and exclaimed, "Oh, you're finally getting married." Afterward, we visited Joey's family home and I met his mother. I learned that Joey also grew up in a single-parent family. His mother had divorced his father when Joey was young because his father had an affair. After the divorce, Joey's mother returned to her parents' home and began studying for a national exam. After 2 years of hard work, she passed the bar exam and became a lawyer. She had once given up on her dream of becoming a lawyer, but after her husband's betrayal, she decided to surpass him and succeeded. Joey's mother was strict, and he warned me. My mother often scolded me, and honestly, it was tough. She might be strict with you too. Feeling nervous, I replied, "Okay, I understand." But I also admired Joey's mother for her accomplishments. Then, the day came when I met his mother for the first time. "Nice to meet you," I said. "I'm Sandy." When I greeted Joey's mother, I had a serious expression. She responded politely, "Nice to meet you, I'm Joey's mother." But I could feel the tension. "Please come in," she said, and I entered the house, realizing she was just as strict as Joey had described. During the marriage introduction, she asked me many questions and it felt like an interview. But in the end, she approved of our marriage. After that, Joey and I had our wedding and started our new life together. We enjoyed commuting and coming home together since we worked at the same company. People at work called us the ideal couple, which was a bit embarrassing but made me happy. On weekends, we went on drives or traveled together, creating many fun memories. Every day, I was truly glad I married him. However, there was one thing that concerned me, my mother-in-law. We regularly visited Joey's mother because she lived alone, and we felt it was important to check on her. But each time we visited, she would say harsh things to me. "Sandy, you need to believe in yourself more. You should be able to say no to things you don't like. If you can't handle difficult situations, you won't be able to cope when you're in trouble." "Yes, I understand," I would reply. "Do you really understand what I'm saying?" she would ask again. "Yes, I do," I would say, trying to sound firm. Every visit to Joey's mother made me tense. Even when I was thinking about whether to focus on my family or continue working, she had strong opinions. "Why would you quit your job after graduating from university? You can quit anytime, but you shouldn't quit lightly. You can manage household chores with some creativity, so don't quit your job." Hearing her say this made it hard for me to decide to quit. In fact, I was scared to tell her if I quit my job. I couldn't even imagine how much she would scold me. So I tried to balance work and household chores in my own way. Even though Joey would eventually take over the family business and I could have chosen to be a housewife, I decided to keep working, following her advice. It was very hard to stand up to Joey's mother. Even when I helped with household chores at her house, she often had harsh words for me. "You need to assert yourself more. Standing your ground is important because the only person who can protect you is yourself." Her words often hurt me deeply, but Joey always comforted me. "My mother is just as strict with herself as she is with others. That's why she has few friends. Don't take her words too much to heart," he would say, and his words brought me relief. After that, we started to visit Joey's mother less often. But another concern came up: my father's health. Every time I saw him, he looked tired. "Are you okay? Do you feel unwell?" I would ask, and although he would respond, "No, I'm fine," it was clear he wasn't in good health. One day while at work, my father suddenly collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. Fortunately, his life wasn't in danger, but he was very weak, and the doctors advised us to live with him if possible, to monitor his condition. When I discussed this with Joey, he immediately agreed. "We should live with your father and keep an eye on him since I'm worried about his health," Joey said. "Thank you, Joey," I replied. At first, my father hesitated to live together, but after I strongly insisted that we should prioritize his health, he agreed. We moved into my childhood home to start our life together. Living together went smoothly, and Joey and my father built a good relationship. I felt comforted being able to live close to my father as he grew older. He became less active than before, and it was inevitable that he wouldn't always stay energetic. With age, there was a constant concern about sudden illness or a decline in his health. Then one day, something slightly worrying happened when I returned home from shopping. One day, I found Joey on the phone in our bedroom. He was saying, "Yeah, everything will be in our hands soon. Don't worry, everything is going according to plan." I was curious about what he was talking about, but I decided not to eavesdrop. I went to the kitchen to put away the groceries. After Joey finished his call, he came to me. "Are you back already?" he asked. "Yes, I just got home." "I didn't want to interrupt since you were on the phone," I replied. "Did you hear that?" Joey asked, looking a bit concerned. "No, I definitely didn't listen," I said. "Okay," he said, but he looked troubled. This made me feel anxious. Since we work at the same place, I doubted it was a work call. It might have been his mother, but he doesn't get along well with her, so that seemed unlikely. I couldn't help but wonder who he was talking to and what it was about. However, around that time my father's health got worse, and I had to focus on him. He couldn't walk anymore and needed care. "Considering your father's condition, you should quit your job to take care of him. I'll be taking over the company, so you don't need to work anymore," Joey suggested. I started to agree, but then I remembered his mother's advice to keep working and stand strong on my own. Her words felt important now. "No, let's hire a daytime helper," I decided. Joey looked surprised. "I think the company would be unstable if my father were gone, even with you as the president. I want to support everyone at the company and also support you," I explained. "I see," Joey said, though he looked a bit disappointed. Despite his concern, I felt that quitting my job wasn't the right choice, so I stuck to my decision. After that, my days were busy with work, household chores, and taking care of my father. At night, my father seemed sorry for being a burden, but I didn't mind taking care of him. Meanwhile, Joey was also busy with taking over the company, making our lives even more hectic. Then we received some joyful news. I was pregnant. My father was extremely happy and eagerly awaited the birth of his grandchild. I was also overjoyed knowing that I could show my father his grandchild's face. However, when I told Joey about the pregnancy, his expression clouded for a moment. "You're pregnant?" he asked. "Yes, it's our child." "Aren't you happy?" I responded. "Of course I'm happy. It was just unexpected and surprising, that's all, he said. Well, you're going to be a dad now, so you've got to do your best, I said, trying to encourage him. Yeah, he replied, but he seemed reluctant, which worried me. After a safe delivery, my father met his grandchild for the first time and wept with joy. When we visited Joey's mother, who was usually quite strict, she also smiled gently when she saw her grandchild. She lifted the baby up and said, "She's truly adorable, Sandy. You did well giving birth while also managing work, household chores, and caregiving. That must have been incredibly hard." Her praise made me feel surprisingly pleased. Maybe Joey's mother wasn't just strict after all. Many people celebrated the birth of our child, which was very heartwarming. I planned to focus on parenting with Joey's help. However, shortly after, my father's health rapidly declined. Despite receiving treatment in the hospital, he passed away a week later. Dad, why? I grieved. It was then revealed that my father had been diagnosed with cancer 6 months ago and had been told his time was limited. But he had kept this from me because he didn't want to worry me. With a child on the way, he was determined to live long enough to see his grandchild, a testament to his strong will. Learning about my father's feelings, I couldn't hold back my tears. The funeral was held, and many people attended, showing how much my father was loved. I managed to perform my duties as the chief mourner without shedding tears, keeping my composure throughout the ceremony. After the funeral, we sorted through his belongings. During this time, Joey naturally took over as president of the company. For about a month, everything was peaceful. However, after that, something unbelievable happened. That day, there was unexpected bad weather with a torrential downpour. Joey said he was going out to shop, but I felt uneasy. While I was feeding the baby, Joey returned. I went to greet him at the entrance, relieved to see him back. "Welcome back," I said. "I'm home," Joey replied. Then I noticed an unfamiliar woman standing with him. She was quite young and beautiful. "Who is this woman?" I asked as I approached the entrance. Joey smiled and said, "This is my new wife. From now on, we will live together in this house." "What are you talking about? What is this all of a sudden?" "I don't understand," I said, shocked. "That's why I'm telling you. I'm divorcing you. I've become the president and have taken over this house." "What do you mean? Just leave quickly. We don't need you anymore, Auntie," Joey said harshly, and his mistress smirked. I was forced out of the house with my baby in my arms, into the pouring rain. Desperate, I knocked on the door and pressed the intercom, but neither Joey nor the woman he was with responded. With nowhere to go, I remembered a small tunnel-shaped play structure in a nearby park. I ran there to shelter from the rain. Both the baby and I were soaked, and I knew I had to find warmth and help quickly. Even though I felt hopeless, I decided to call my mother-in-law. Despite our differences, I believed she would help for the sake of her grandchild. I explained the situation over the phone, and to my relief, she came to pick us up immediately. "Sandy," she called out when she saw me. "Mother," I replied. "Quick, get in the car," she urged, driving us to her home. She took both the baby and me inside. "Please take care of this child," I pleaded. My mother-in-law frowned slightly but responded, "What are you talking about? You come in too." "Is it really okay for me to?" I asked, surprised. "Of course you are family too," she said. Her kind words nearly brought me to tears. "I'm truly sorry for Joey's irresponsible behavior," she continued. "I've always seen some of his father's traits in him, but I thought you would keep him in line. Yet he still caused trouble." Her understanding and support in that moment not only offered me shelter, but also renewed my hope and faith in family. "Am I really wonderful?" I asked, taken aback by her praise. "Of course you are. You've managed the household chores, caregiving, parenting, and work all by yourself. I respect you for that. That's why I can't forgive my son for betraying someone like you," she said. Her words moved me to tears. She had been observing all my efforts all along. "Don't cry. Be strong. You're a mother," she advised, gently patting my head and making me some warm coffee. After I calmed down, my mother-in-law spoke with determination. "Now it's time to fight back. We'll correct this wrongdoing." She offered her support as a lawyer and prepared to stand by my side. I couldn't have wished for stronger support, and together, we crafted a plan to confront Joey and his mistress. When we arrived at the house, Joey greeted us dismissively. "What are you doing here?" But when he saw his mother behind me, his expression changed to shock. "Why is Mom here?" "Joey, today I am not here as your mother but as a lawyer. We have a lot to discuss, so let us in." "If you refuse, we will meet in court," she stated firmly. Joey reluctantly let us in. The mistress looked shocked to see my mother-in-law and was even more astounded when she learned that she was a lawyer. "Let's start the discussion," my mother-in-law said. "You said you've inherited the house, but where are the documents? Sandy was supposed to inherit it." "I've properly prepared the documents and completed the procedures, so there's no issue," Joey replied. "That's not correct. Sandy says she doesn't remember signing any such documents. Ownership transfer documents require the actual person's signature," my mother-in-law countered. Caught off guard, Joey stumbled over his words. It became clear that the documents had been forged. "Document forgery is a legally punishable act. Do you understand what you've done? Ignorance won't save you," my mother-in-law continued. Joey started to sweat, and his panic became evident. The mistress also looked anxious. "Sandy signed it. She was just upset and forgot." Joey tried to defend himself. "No, I did not sign anything. A handwriting analysis will prove it. You forged the documents," I calmly replied. "Joey, stop this nonsense," my mother-in-law scolded, causing him to stagger. "Sorry, I had her forge it," he confessed. "This makes the evidence complete," my mother-in-law stated, indicating a voice recorder. Joey turned pale and fell silent. The mistress was also visibly shaken. "As Sandy's attorney, I demand that you divide the property and leave this house immediately," my mother-in-law declared. "Why are you supporting her, Mom?" Joey pleaded. "Sandy is a respectable person. Once she married you, she became part of my family, making her important to me too," my mother-in-law responded. "But I am your real son," he protested. "You have betrayed this family. From now on, I am severing ties with you. Don't show your face to us ever again," she said. Disheartened, Joey hung his head in shame. The mistress seemed petrified. After this confrontation, Joey and I divorced, and I was able to recover my father's estate. Joey lost his position at the company and was eventually forced to resign. He left the company almost as if he were fleeing. Afterward, I took over my father's company and became its president. My mother-in-law helped take care of the baby during the day. I never expected that someone I once found difficult would become such a significant support. I am truly grateful for her assistance. As for Joey, after leaving the company, he failed to secure a large house, and the mistress abandoned him. Now, he's burdened with debt and child support payments, struggling to make ends meet through part-time jobs. As president, I am working hard to protect the livelihoods of our employees and care for my child. This challenging journey has reaffirmed the value of family and resilience, guiding me to lead both my family and the company toward a stable future.
You know, I'll be busy looking after the baby soon. I won't be able to come home for a while, so try not to miss me too much, okay? My husband said this as he packed his things. I just stood there watching him. He didn't seem to care about how I felt. He kept laughing and humming, asking about our son's baby bottle. But the baby he was talking about wasn't ours. He'd gotten another woman pregnant, and the baby was theirs. This man had left me and our son behind. My name is Linda, and I'm 42 years old. I work part-time as a caregiver, so I don't earn much. But I'm studying to become a certified nursing assistant. My family consists of my husband and our son. My husband is 45 years old and works as a manager in a fairly big company, where he's been for many years. My husband used to flirt with other women a lot, and it made me cry many times. I asked him who was more important to him, me or the other women, but I never left him because I loved him. After our son was born, he stopped flirting and focused on his job. Our son, Robert, is turning 18 this month. Time has gone by quickly as I've balanced work, cleaning the house, and taking care of him. Robert went through a rebellious phase, but now he's about to finish high school. He's working hard to get into his dream college, studying every day after school. If he gets in, he'll move away from home, which worries me a bit. As parents, we still want to protect him, but Robert has grown tall and handsome, almost an adult. I need to find a hobby to help me adjust to him becoming independent. While Robert was busy studying for his college entrance exams, there were times when my husband started coming home late. At first, I thought it was just because of his job, but there was a time when he didn't answer my calls or messages, which made me suspicious. Since then, I found enough reasons to doubt him, like the smell of perfume on his suits and long hairs in the car that weren't mine. But I never found the courage to confront him about it. Then, one day during dinner as a family, my husband drank more than usual. With a flushed face, he said, "Robert has really grown up, hasn't he? I still want to be a kid though, but you've grown so much taller since middle school, and your face has become more mature, hasn't it?" Robert seemed embarrassed to be treated like an adult and scratched his head. My husband, looking at him casually, asked, "So you don't need your old man anymore, huh?" "What are you talking about?" Caught off guard by the sudden change in conversation, I couldn't help but chime in. Both Robert and I looked at him suspiciously as my husband finished the rest of his beer and said, "Well, the thing is, my girlfriend is pregnant." The room fell silent. Did he just say what I think he said? Girlfriend? Pregnant? It didn't make any sense. I let out a dry laugh. "I think you've had too much to drink today." "No, this is a true story," he insisted. "I met her a year ago, and we've been dating ever since. I was planning to keep it a secret, but it seems like we accidentally made a baby." I stood up quickly and covered Robert's ears. Robert didn't seem to follow, looking at his father with a blank expression. "Robert, go back to your room." "What? This is the last time we'll all be together." I haven't had much time to talk to Robert lately. Let him stay here a little bit longer. How can you say that? I don't understand how you think it's okay for our son to hear this. And what do you mean by the last time? I couldn't control my anger, and my voice rose. I hugged Robert tightly, wanting to shield him from the conversation. He's already in a sensitive period because of his upcoming exams, so I don't want him to hear this kind of talk. But my husband didn't care and kept talking. "Well, I'm not coming home for a while because I'll be helping her raise the baby, you know." My head spun at my husband's words. So he'd have been seeing another woman and was having a baby with her, and he's only telling us now when the birth is near. I couldn't understand his behavior, and I felt like I was going to lose it. We had been together for over 20 years. There were times when I genuinely disliked him, but I always felt secure when I saw him being a responsible father to Robert. Did he really want to be with his mistress so much that he would throw away all the trust we had built over the years? Well, that's how it is. "I'm going to replace this weekend, and I'll start getting ready now," he said, starting to pack his things in a backpack. I stood there, feeling like a hole had been torn in my heart. "Hey, do we still have the baby bottles Robert used?" My husband was all smiles, unlike us. I silently shook my head. There was one thing left, but it wasn't for him and his mistress. It was saved for when Robert grew up, so my husband and I could look back on our parenting together, praising each other and sharing memories. My husband left the room, muttering about it being a waste, and went to the bedroom to organize his clothes. "Did he just abandon us?" Robert whispered, tears in his eyes, and I couldn't find the words to deny it. 3 days later, my husband was apparently heading to his mistress's place. When I cried that I had actually once believed in him, he said, "I always wanted a second child, but you were always so busy, right? And while we were doing all that, we got older and older. I knew we couldn't have another one." His laugh hurt my heart deeply. Robert, holding back his tears, glared at his father while rubbing my back. "What's with that look? By the time you come back, I won't be here anymore. Are you okay with that? Sure, you're an adult now, right? You've lost your childlike charm, and you're not as cute anymore. I heard my girlfriend's baby is a girl, so I might like her even more than you." Robert lunged at his father. He flinched for a moment, but then glared back at Robert. "Ah, she's so young and cute, unlike you guys. I'm really looking forward to our future together." "Yeah, I get it now. You're the worst, Dad. At least now both Mom and I can make up our minds. We know what to do." I also spoke up, following Robert. You should know that there will be no home for you to return to anymore." My husband looked annoyed and quickly let go of Robert's hand. He left without even saying goodbye. Robert held me up as I felt myself getting weaker. We didn't just sit around after we found out about my husband's girlfriend. We started planning what to do next. About 2 weeks later, my husband called. He laughed and said things were going well with their daughter. He even sent a picture of the girlfriend holding the baby, which made me really angry. But without knowing, he gave us proof. I saved the picture and recorded our conversation, amazed at how silly he was. Then, right on time, my husband's girlfriend took the phone. "Are you his wife?" "I'm sorry I took your husband, but we have a child together now, so there's nothing you can do, right?" "Yeah, being a parent is a handful. It's good you're cool about it. When your husband talked about you, I thought you were just someone who cried a lot and couldn't handle stuff. But you're not like that at all." That's what he'd been telling his girlfriend about me. Half a year ago, those words would have hurt me a lot, but now they didn't faze me. I didn't love my husband anymore. "You knew he was married with a kid, and you still went after him, didn't you?" "At first, I didn't know he was married. Your husband always took off his wedding ring when we met, so when he finally told me, I was surprised, but it didn't change how I felt about him. We're meant to be together forever," she said. "It's a good thing they're both clueless," I thought to myself. This would prove that the mistress knew my husband was married but still stayed with him. Her words made me mad, but this evidence would be crucial. If she seemed sorry and upset about the baby, it would have been harder to get back at her. I wished them luck and ended the call. 2 years later, I saw that familiar number on my phone. I took a deep breath before answering. "Hey, how have you been? I'm on my way home, so make sure the house is clean, okay? Didn't I tell you there's no home for you anymore? What are you trying to prove?" My husband sounded frustrated. "Yes, I know I left suddenly, but I can't leave her to raise the child alone, can I? You're a mother too. You should get it." He still doesn't understand. He hasn't changed since that day. But maybe that's a good thing. It makes me sure that Robert and I were right to look out for ourselves. "I think you've got it wrong. There's literally no house for you to come back to." "I sold it," I said, hearing my husband gasp. I decided to explain everything that happened that day 2 years ago to my husband, who seemed clueless. My son and I were figuring out how to get him out of our lives for good. In the middle of it, I realized he might want to come back. But after all he'd done and said, I couldn't live with him anymore. Even our house felt tainted now. When I shared this, Robert calmly asked me, "Isn't this house in your mom's name?" "Yes, we renovated and moved into this house that I inherited from my grandfather," I replied. "In that case, why don't we sell it?" Robert suggested. His suggestion surprised me, but selling the house would make sure my husband couldn't come back. Plus, we could use the money to hire a lawyer and a private investigator for the divorce. Robert had been saving money for months so we could live without worries. With his savings and a bit more, I could move away with him. I agreed to Robert's idea and started getting things ready. Robert worked really hard in his studies and got accepted to a college far away. I also got certified as a nursing assistant, which meant I could earn more and work anywhere. So, we sold the house. We made sure to get permission from my grandfather, who had taken care of me like my parents since mine had passed away early. When I told him about my husband, he was really mad. My grandparents gave us some of their savings to help us start our new life. They insisted, saying they didn't need the money at their age. They handed me an envelope filled with cash, and I was moved to tears by their kindness. With their help, we moved to the state where Robert's college was located. You never cared about what we were doing while Robert was studying for his exams, so I bet you don't know where we live now, I told my husband. You can't trick me like that. My husband's voice got louder, sounding panicked. If you're lying, come prove it yourself. We're busy, so we'll hang up now. Hey, wait. Robert, who had been quietly listening, took the phone from me. Dad, remember what you said? Then we don't need you anymore. We agree. We don't need a dad who leaves us for his girlfriend. With a firm tone, Robert told him this, and my husband started crying. Please don't leave me. I know I messed up. I took the phone back, ready to end things. You might not want a divorce, but we're moving forward with it. And did you know? If your girlfriend's baby was conceived during our marriage, you'll have to pay even more in alimony. Better start preparing for that. I hung up without waiting for his reply. He kept calling, but I ignored it. I didn't need any more stress. From now on, my husband would have to deal with the costs of raising his girlfriend's child and paying me alimony. My husband wasn't good at supporting himself, and I always had to clean up after him. He'd leave dirty dishes and laundry everywhere, hardly ever helping around the house. Sometimes he'd proudly take out the trash, but that was rare. I don't think he and his young girlfriend will last long. After speaking my mind, I feel like a weight has been lifted off my chest. I take a deep breath. Robert looks worried about me. I'm okay. I said what I needed to, and I feel much better now. Let's go out and eat something you like today. I force a smile at Robert, even though I'm tired. He still looks worried, but he tries to be cheerful for my sake. Seeing my smiling son debating between steak, sushi, or pizza is absolutely adorable. We've been through a lot of tough times, but let's make even more happy memories. This new place is unfamiliar, but Robert and I will be just fine. I need to work hard to help him become more independent. When I decided to live with him, he was glad to still get my home-cooked meals since he's not great at cooking. But now, having friends over or getting a girlfriend might be awkward with me around. Robert is so caring that he'll always worry about me, and his girlfriend might get tired of it eventually. I'll need to teach him how to cook so he can live on his own, which means I'll be even busier. Even though my husband is gone, I don't feel lonely anymore. Thinking about our future life together, I laugh and feel refreshed. With my husband completely out of my life, I can live the rest of my days with a clear conscience. Where are you? What's happening? My husband's voice sounded worried on the answering machine. My mom's in trouble. He said his mother had collapsed and was taken to the hospital in an ambulance. While getting things ready for her hospital stay, I found a shocking picture of my husband and his sister. Seeing it made me freeze, and I ran to my parents' house to escape. I've been with my husband for 3 years, but now I felt deceived. He didn't truly care about me. He just wanted a wife. I couldn't forgive him, so I decided to divorce him. My name's Sarah. I'm 32 and work at a beauty salon. 4 years ago, I felt rushed. All my friends were getting married, and I wanted to too. Hearing about their husbands and kids made me feel left out, even though they didn't mean it. I'd cry on the way home sometimes, feeling jealous. I had a boyfriend before, but I wondered if I'd ever find someone to marry. So, with 2 years left in my 20s, I threw myself into finding a husband. I tried dating apps and went to marriage events, but it was tough finding the right person. The ones I liked weren't interested in getting married, and things never progressed. I wasn't asking for much, just someone to share my life with. I only had friendships and short-lived relationships. Seeing my friends getting married one by one, I decided to join a marriage agency, even though it was pricey. I hope I find someone serious about marriage there. That's when I met Ken, my husband. He was 5 years older than me and worked for a big company. He was really good-looking, and I wondered why he wasn't married yet. When I saw his profile, I just knew he was the one for me. When we first met, Ken said he wanted to get married soon, and I felt the same way. He was just as nice and polite as he seemed online, and I felt really happy around him. I told him I didn't have much education or job experience, but I liked taking care of the house. He said he was too busy with work to do chores, so he wanted to marry someone like me. I felt flattered and excited. I lived alone with my mom because she's sick, and I can't leave her by herself. Ken said if we got married, he'd like my mom to live with us. He explained it nicely, and even though I was surprised, I felt like he was being honest with me. I've dealt with older women in my job, so I felt comfortable with the idea of living with my future mother-in-law. But what mattered most to me was getting to know Ken better. He seemed to really like me, and we went on a few dates together. The more I got to know him, the more I realized Ken was a true gentleman and a kind person. I even got the chance to meet his mom over dinner. She was small and very pretty. She told me I was too good for Ken and reassured me about living with her, saying she didn't need nursing care despite her chronic illness. She suggested we go out for parfait next time instead of dining at a fancy restaurant. With her relaxed, high-pitched voice and our shared love for sweets, I felt at ease about living together. Ken was eager to get married soon, and we began dating with the intention of tying the knot. Ken was always busy with work, but he made time for me. We went on trips and spent a lot of quality time together. Even seeing him first thing in the morning, my feelings for him didn't change. He was just as refreshing as when I first met him, and I found myself liking him more and more. His mom and I became close friends, bonding over our love for sweets. Despite her needing a lot of medication, Ken's mom was energetic and youthful. She didn't mind waiting in line at popular restaurants and looked forward to trying delicious food. Sometimes I forgot about the age difference between her and Ken because we got along so well. She shared some stories about her past struggles, including her own mother-in-law's divorces. After dating for about 6 months, Ken and I got married. I was thrilled to have gotten married just before turning 30, and I felt proud of the effort I had put into finding a partner. We quickly registered our marriage and started getting ready to move in together. Then one day, Ken told me he needed to talk to me about something important. I started to feel uneasy when Ken said he needed to talk to me about something I hadn't heard before. He revealed that he had a sister named Hannah, who wasn't his biological sister. Hannah was actually the daughter of Ken's stepfather from a previous marriage. Ken's parents had divorced 5 years ago, and his father had passed away. Because Hannah didn't have any other family, Ken felt responsible for her and kept in touch. Ken wanted to invite Hannah to our wedding, but his mom strongly opposed it because she didn't like me. Despite this, Ken wanted me to meet Hannah at least once because she meant a lot to him. I was curious and a bit worried about why Ken's mom disliked Hannah, especially since she had been so kind to me. However, seeing how much Ken cared about his family, I agreed to meet her. When I met Hannah, she was very beautiful and outgoing. She told me she worked at a bar, and I couldn't understand why Ken's mom didn't like her. She was friendly and made our meeting enjoyable. During our conversation, I nervously asked Hannah about living with Ken when they were younger. They shared funny stories, and it was clear they had a close bond. They seemed like the perfect siblings. As we said goodbye, Hannah apologized for not being able to attend our wedding and wished me well as a wife. On the way home, Ken asked me not to tell his mom about meeting Hannah, as it would only cause more problems. I didn't know the exact reason behind the conflict between my mother-in-law and Hannah, but I felt it wasn't my place to get involved. So I kept my meeting with Hannah to myself and focused on our life together as a family of 3. Ken was still busy with work, often coming home late. On his days off, he'd sometimes take my mother-in-law and me out for meals. We also did household chores together and occasionally enjoyed sweets or watched movies. Overall, things seemed happy, but I did worry about my mother-in-law's health since she sometimes slept all day when she wasn't feeling well. While I was at work, I made sure to keep in touch with her regularly. However, one thing that bothered me was Ken's constant phone use. He was always glued to his phone, even bringing it into the bathroom. At first, I thought he might be addicted to games, but it became concerning when it seemed excessive. Once I tried calling him several times, but his phone was busy the whole time. When he returned home, I mentioned it, but he just said he had received a call from work. Although we had just gotten married, I couldn't shake off the feeling of curiosity and concern about his behavior. I didn't think he was cheating on me, but I couldn't help but wonder. Surprisingly, my mother-in-law didn't seem bothered by his phone habits, considering it normal. One day, I couldn't shake off a bad feeling, so I glanced at Ken's phone screen and noticed he was frequently texting someone. It seemed like they talked often. Another night, Ken came home late, and I couldn't help but wonder who he was texting at such a late hour. Trying to play it off casually, I asked him, Who do you always talk to in the middle of the night? After my mother-in-law went to bed, I asked him about it, but he just laughed it off, saying it was his sister. He joked if I suspected him of cheating, and I laughed along, feeling silly for worrying too much. After that, I stopped worrying about his phone habits, even though he was still busy with work and didn't have much time for me. However, I started feeling uneasy about how much time he spent with Hannah. 2 years passed, and life with the three of us went smoothly. My mother-in-law and I had a routine of visiting the sweet store together. We shared a close bond, and I never felt awkward about living with her. Ken's work kept him busy, and he continued to be glued to his phone, but I had gotten used to it. Despite some minor complaints, we were a happy family. Ken always made time for family events, like our wedding anniversary and my birthday. Then, one day, my mother-in-law fell sick and spent the day in bed. I checked on her frequently, and in the evening, she complained of pain. I quickly called an ambulance, and she was taken to the hospital. Though I was worried, I was relieved to find out her condition wasn't critical. I informed Ken about her hospitalization, and he left work early to join us at the hospital. I decided to go home to pack some things, planning to stay with my mother-in-law at the hospital for a few days. Upon returning home, I went to my mother-in-law's room to gather her insurance card and personal seal. She had mentioned they were in the top drawer, but I couldn't find them there. So I checked the bottom drawer, where I stumbled upon a small box, thinking it might contain what I was looking for. I opened it, only to find a shockingly large number of photographs inside. As I looked through them, my heart sank. The pictures weren't of Ken and Hannah as siblings, they were of them as lovers. They were holding hands, kissing each other, and the sight made me feel sick to my stomach. I couldn't bear to look at them for long, so I closed the box. The realization hit me hard. Ken had been having an affair with Hannah all this time, and I couldn't believe it. My mind went blank, and the next thing I knew, I was running to my parents' house, clutching the box tightly. At my parents' house, my mother was surprised to see me in such distress. When she saw the contents of the box, she hugged me tightly as I broke down in tears. After a while, when I had calmed down a bit, she asked me if Ken was cheating. I explained to her that the woman in the pictures was Hannah, and the box was found in my mother-in-law's room. I hadn't even told my own mother about having a sister-in-law. I can't continue living with him, I sobbed to my mother. Of course not. You absolutely can't stay with him, she replied firmly, sharing my anger. When I checked my phone, I saw numerous missed calls from Ken and an angry voicemail asking where I was and what I was doing while his mother was in trouble. But after discovering the truth, I couldn't bring myself to respond. I was really upset, but I thought it was strange because I felt like I should be the one who's angry. So, I turned off my phone because just talking about it made me feel sick thinking about the pictures. The next day, I decided to be kind and reach out to him. I said, I need to talk to you tonight. I'll bring my mom along, so please call Hannah. He started talking a lot, saying how relieved he was that Hannah was okay. It annoyed me, so I just said, okay, see you tonight, and hung up. Right after that, I went to see my mother-in-law in the hospital. She looked happy to see me and called my name. I apologized for her feeling sick, but I needed to know the truth. I found a box in her closet and showed it to her. She started crying. She said, Sarah, I'm really sorry. Ken is my ex-husband's stepchild. 5 years ago, they told me they were in love, even though they're not related by blood. They're both my kids. I told that it wasn't right, and Hannah got upset and left. I haven't heard from her since. I should have told you earlier, but I didn't want to upset you with their old photos. Don't worry. I don't know where Hannah is now, and I'm pretty sure she's not in touch with Ken. She looked me straight in the eyes, and I could tell she was telling the truth. Ken still talks to Hannah. Actually, he introduced me to her years ago. I told my mother-in-law, and she cried again. But you're married, I pointed out. I'm sorry, it's not your fault, but I can't stay married to Ken anymore. I'm going to divorce him. Don't apologize to me. It's my mistake for not noticing. I'm sorry, she said. I couldn't hold back my tears either. I left the hospital room and headed to the house where my mom, Ken, and Hannah were waiting. When I got there, they were all waiting for me. I sat down and immediately showed them the pictures. You two were in a relationship and I'm divorcing you, I said. Ken didn't seem bothered and said, yeah, that's true. Being family and being in a relationship are different. We were happy as a family. Wasn't Mom happy too? What's wrong with that? We don't need to get divorced, he said with his usual bright smile. Hannah, I'm sorry for not telling you earlier, but I didn't mean to break up your family. I don't think we need to get divorced, she said. I was furious. Hearing them talk like that made me shake with anger. That's ridiculous. This is cheating. How can I stay in a family with someone like that? I shouted at them loudly. Hey, calm down. If you want a divorce, that's okay. I tried to be a good family member. Since you're the one asking for it, we'll make it a friendly divorce. Ken said something I didn't quite get. What? How can you call this friendly? This is a huge betrayal. I'm going to ask for alimony from both of you, I explained. Okay, sure. I'll pay whatever you ask for. Just don't tell my mom. And let's say the reason for the divorce is just differences in personality. I already told your mom everything. She was upset. I told her about the divorce, Ken said. What? Why would you do that? He lost his cool and yelled loudly in response to my words. Hannah, why did you tell her too? She cried. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the alimony. Goodbye, I said as I left the house with my mother. She told me, you handled that well, and hugged me tightly. I cried loudly, letting out all my emotions into her embrace. Now I realized that Ken never really cared about me. He just wanted a wife to make his mom happy. I thought I wanted to marry him too, and maybe we were happy as a family, but I can't forgive myself for not seeing the betrayal sooner. I'm just glad I figured it out now and could get a divorce. Later, my lawyer finalized the divorce successfully. I asked for alimony from both Ken and Hannah, but Hannah didn't have money, and she was upset with Ken for only paying his share. Their relationship soured, and they decided to split up. I couldn't afford to pay the alimony, so I started working double shifts at the bar where I used to work. After my mother-in-law left the hospital, she was upset with Ken and warned him that if he ever sees Hannah again, she'll cut ties with him. Despite everything, my mother-in-law and I still keep in touch, and we sometimes go out for treats. I'm relieved that she's out of the hospital and seems to be doing well. Right now, I'm staying with my parents. I'm busy getting ready for the beauty salon where I used to work to reopen. Once things settle down a bit more, I'll move out and live on my own again. I'm not jealous anymore when I hear about my friends who are married. Until I meet someone special again, I'll just keep working hard. My son and I are beginning a fancy life in another country with his $3 million. His mother warned, if you two split up, you won't have enough money. Then she added, if you want our new address, you'll have to beg and lick my shoes. I was confused and asked, What? What are you saying? What do you mean? I had no idea they were planning to move abroad or saving up so much money. She explained, I meant my son inherited $3 million. We're going to live a wealthy life overseas, just the two of us. Why would my husband leave the country? And why are you talking about $3 million? Why are you being so secretive? Well, if you're really curious, get down on your knees and beg while licking my shoes, and I might just tell you. Why are you being so rude? Where is my husband? We're quite comfortable here. We're living it up with my son's $3 million. So you're not needed anymore. I was shocked by what my mother-in-law said. How could my husband suddenly have $3 million and be living a luxurious life abroad? And the way she talked, as if I didn't belong. I felt a mix of anger and worry, but I knew I needed to stay calm and figure things out. How did my husband get all that money? And could it be connected to? I work as a manager at a big tech company. My husband and I met there, and I was attracted to his upbeat personality, which led to us getting married. His parents welcomed me warmly at first. Later, we had a daughter who's now 14. I grew up poor with difficult parents. Having faced many challenges, I was determined to love and care for my daughter deeply, while also managing work and the household. Then, one day, my husband had to move to Texas for a project. "It's going to be tough being alone with our daughter," I said. "Yeah, balancing work, chores, and taking care of her will be hard." "Maybe we should ask my mom to come and help," my husband suggested. "That could be a relief," I agreed. So I reluctantly agreed to let my mother-in-law move in with us. "Mommy, when will Daddy come back?" my daughter asked. "It looks like he'll be in Texas for a while, but don't worry. Gran was coming to stay with us," I reassured her. And so, my mother-in-law came to live with us. Little did I know, this decision would turn out to be the biggest mistake of my life. "You're working late again today, huh? Women who neglect their families." I'd hear biting remarks from her when I came home from work. "I have a job too, and I take care of our daughter." I'd argue back, but she was never satisfied. "When I was young, family was everything. I never even thought about working outside," she'd say. Then one day when my daughter did well in school, she said, "It's all thanks to me. What's the point of you? Maybe we don't need you around." Even though my mother-in-law only helped with easy homework, I was the one teaching my daughter most subjects. And if I made a small mistake with cooking, she'd jump on me, saying, "How did you and my son even survive before with such poor cooking skills?" "I'm doing my best, and everyone has their own way of doing things," I'd snap back. My patience was running out. "She doesn't do her chores," she complained to my husband. "Mom, she's working too. Please try to understand," my husband would say, trying to mediate. But as we continued living together, the relationship between my mother-in-law and me became more strained. With my husband far away, I felt even more isolated. One day, I decided to call my husband to talk about it. "Hello, are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine. What's on your mind? It's kind of late." "Well, your mom gave me a piece of her mind about house chores, and it's really getting to me." I explained to my husband over the phone. "I'm sorry. Mom's always been a bit sharp-tongued, but maybe she has a point. Still, don't let it get to you too much. Just keep doing things at your own pace," he comforted me. Feeling a bit reassured by my husband's words, I tried to focus on our daily routine again. But with my husband away, the pressure from my mother-in-law kept building, and I was getting more and more tired. Every day, I eagerly awaited my husband's return. Living with my mother-in-law without him around was tough. At first, I coped by clinging to reminders of him. But as time went on, her behavior became unbearable, and I felt overwhelmed. She criticized everything I did, from morning till night. Even when I made my husband's favorite rice dish, she coldly remarked, "This tastes terrible. Who'd eat this?" Whenever I took a short break, she'd scold me, saying, "How can a woman who can't even handle household chores take a break?" I never felt very confident about housework. With my husband, he just laughed off my mistakes. But with my mother-in-law, I felt like I couldn't make any mistakes. I think she treats me this way because she loves her son so much. She can't accept that he got married and moved away from her. This experience made me determined never to become an overbearing parent like her. One day, after treating myself to a small shopping spree at a local mall, my mother-in-law found out about it. When I got home, she was waiting for me at the entrance, furious. "How could you go out for fun when your husband isn't home? What about the household chores?" "I thought I needed a little break," I replied. "A break? In this situation, all this trouble is happening because of your incompetence," she scolded. After that, I hoped for a call from my husband. I thought hearing his voice might make me feel better, but what he told me was far from comforting. I have some bad news. My work in Texas isn't going well. I got into gambling, and now I'm in serious financial trouble. I've accumulated a lot of debt, he confessed. "What? Are you serious? Gambling? In debt? This is completely unacceptable. What's going to happen to our future and our daughters?" I exclaimed, feeling shocked and worried. I'm sorry, truly sorry. I feel trapped right now, but believe me, I'll figure it out, my husband apologized. How? How do you plan to fix this? How much do you owe? I asked, feeling overwhelmed by the news. I always saw my husband as honest and sincere. He never seemed like the type to gamble. He was always on time for our dates, and when we lived together, he always came straight home from work. He thanked me for every meal I cooked or every load of laundry I did. His sincerity and honesty were what made me fall in love with him. But with him away and my mother-in-law's constant criticism, life felt unbearable. I can't believe someone as useless as you married my son. My mother-in-law's words pierced through me, sinking my heart deeper into despair. Since my husband started working away, I've been constantly blamed and criticized by my mother-in-law. His recent confession about his debts and gambling only added to my despair. The weight of it all became too much to bear, and one night, I left the house and found myself crying on a park bench. Then, one day, my mother-in-law uncovered a secret from my past. During dinner, she used it against me. "So, I heard you used to work in a nightclub, huh? Shame on you for raising my grandchild after working in such a place," she sneered. "How did you find out about that?" I asked, feeling shocked and embarrassed. I was telling an acquaintance about how useless my son's wife is and showed them a picture of you. They recognized you. "Apparently, you weren't even good at that nightclub job," she taunted. In my past, fed up with a mother who never worked and always partied, I left my family home. Struggling for money, I found a job at a nightclub. It was before I married my husband, a secret I believed he didn't know. I was speechless. I never thought my mother-in-law would uncover this about my past, and she kept using it to attack me. "I can't believe someone like you is the mother of my grandchild. I'll tell my son and have you kicked out," she threatened. My despair deepened. It felt like everything I had with my husband, all the efforts I put in, and the future I dreamed of were taken away with her words. My husband's communication became scarce. I worried he started doubting and suspecting me. Alone in my room one night, I reflected on my life, meeting my husband, our marriage, and our current struggles, along with my mother-in-law's constant blame and accusations. I felt like I couldn't continue like this. "I can't take it anymore," I whispered, walking out into the lonely nighttime streets. The silence of the streets echoed my despair. My mother-in-law's words about my past, my secrets, and my present haunted me. Everything became a target for her criticism and blame. I sat on a bench in a park, staring up at the sky. Not a single star was visible. My heart felt just as dark. Suddenly, someone approached. "Mom, why are you here?" My daughter sat next to me, holding my hand. "Mom, don't let Grandma get to you. You work hard at an IE company and you've been through so much. You're strong." "Thank you. But maybe Grandma has a point," I replied. "Mom, Grandma's just stuck in the past. In today's world, you should be proud of any job you've done. I'm proud you worked at a nightclub," she reassured me. "Really?" "Yes, because it shows you've always tried your best for us no matter the circumstances. Don't let Grandma's words control you." My daughter's words touched my heart, and tears welled up in my eyes. "Mom, you're working hard in IT now, right? That's amazing. I'll always be on your side, no matter what Grandma says." Gratitude flooded my heart. With my daughter's support, I felt hopeful that we could overcome any challenges together. Later, in my husband's study, I took a deep breath before diving into a pile of paperwork. I carefully went through each document, trying to uncover his secrets. Bank statements, credit card bills, loan agreements. Slowly, my husband's financial situation started to make sense. Why did this happen? I discovered several receipts from gambling activities, horse racing, slot machines, casinos. It was heartbreaking to think about how much money he had wasted on these activities. Next, I turned on my husband's computer. The password was his birthday, but reversed. His inbox was overflowing with collection emails from financial institutions and messages from friends demanding repayment of loans. Additionally, I found a lot of promotional emails from gambling-related websites. I decided to calculate how much my husband had spent on gambling. The total was a staggering $3 million, far more than I had imagined. Seeing that amount, I felt a moment of panic, but there was no time to waste. I started to plan how to secure funds to support our livelihood. I thought about my savings, the money we could get from selling our expensive electronics and luxury items at home, and the money I had saved from my salary. After that, I kept up with my investigation. Every day, I worked hard, reaching out to financial institutions to understand the extent of my husband's debts and obtaining his credit information. A few days later, I devised a plan. I started getting ready to build a life where I didn't have to rely on my husband or mother-in-law, and I also figured out a way to pay off his debts. Using my background in the IT industry, I decided to take on freelance projects. For several days, I built up a portfolio and signed up on a website for freelance jobs. Then, a few days later, I got my first request from a client. This will help a bit with our living expenses, I thought. In between working on projects, I went over our household finances. I canceled unnecessary subscriptions, cut back on unnecessary spending, and found ways to save on groceries. I managed to lower our daily food expenses as much as possible. Also, based on advice from local moms, I participated in a community yard sale. I managed to sell some high-end items and extra electronics we had, making a decent amount of money. A few weeks later, my freelance work was going well, and I felt like my income was becoming steady. By then, I had enough money in my bank account to cover our living expenses. When I got home one day, all of my mother-in-law's things were gone. At the same time, my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law. "Oh, are you back already? You must have noticed our stuff is gone," she said. "What are you trying to say?" I asked. "My son and I are starting a luxurious life abroad with his $3 million. If you ever think of divorcing him, you won't be able to make it on your own. If you want our new address, get on your knees and lick my shoes." I couldn't help but chuckle. "Actually, that $3 million is a debt," I said. "Stop joking. There's no way my son has that kind of debt," she replied. "You may not believe it, but it's true. In his study, there are transaction records from banks and financial institutions, credit card bills, contracts, and more. Plus, on his PC, there are collection emails from financial institutions, messages from friends demanding repayment, and promotional emails from gambling sites. If you don't believe me, why don't you check?" I suggested. "You're lying," she exclaimed. "It's the result of his gambling addiction. Horse racing, slot machines, casinos. All in all, it amounts to a whopping $3 million. I just sent you photos of the evidence. Maybe you should take a look," I said calmly. "I had no idea. He probably didn't want you to know, but it doesn't change the facts," my mother-in-law admitted. "I've been thinking about how to deal with this huge debt, but I guess I don't have to anymore," I responded. There was a moment of silence on the phone as my mother-in-law processed the information. "I truly didn't know. I don't know what to say," she finally said. Without another word, I ended the call. From that moment on, I was determined to start a new chapter in my life. I was shocked by my husband and mother-in-law's actions, but I knew I had to move forward for the sake of my daughter and myself. Later, my husband called. "I'm so sorry. Truly, I am," he apologized. His voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it, but my anger didn't fade. "How did it come to this? Our family is breaking apart because of you. I never thought it would get this bad. But when I decided to go overseas with Mom, I couldn't see a future with you and our daughter," he confessed. I was stunned by his words. "You couldn't see. It's because of your recklessness and lack of planning that our family is in this mess," he accused. "I understand that, but it's too late now. I made a promise to Mom." "What promise?" I demanded. "One to sacrifice our daughter's future and grab a paradise just for ourselves," my husband finally admitted. There was silence for a moment. "Did you truly love our family?" I asked. "I did. But now it's different," he responded, his voice breaking into tears. "Don't hurt us anymore. My daughter and I are gonna live on our own from now on. We'll forget about you," I declared firmly. There was no response from him, only the sound of his sobbing from the other end. Calmly, I hung up the phone. The reason my mother-in-law mistook assets for debts was due to a sudden bill of $3 million that arrived at our home. She thought it was a lottery-winning notice and began planning to move overseas, unaware of the misunderstanding. My husband, thinking starting a new life abroad would solve the debt problem, agreed to her proposal, mistaking the bill for a lottery notice. After that conversation, I set aside my anger towards my husband and started looking for a lawyer. I was determined to prepare for a divorce, seeking compensation for emotional distress and child support. A new life was about to begin for me and my daughter, independent from my husband and mother-in-law. I sought advice from a lawyer regarding divorce proceedings, emotional distress compensation, and child support claims. During this time, my daughter and I bonded deeply, and she became my biggest supporter. She fully understood my decision and chose to stay with me. Her words brought me comfort and made all the struggles with my husband and mother-in-law seem worth it. Tears of gratitude filled my eyes. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law and husband faced challenges in their new life overseas. Despite their efforts, they encountered problems due to lack of preparation and financial issues. To make matters worse, they were pickpocketed, losing their remaining funds, and struggled with the language barrier. Ultimately, they were deported for overstaying their visas. Later, I negotiated the terms of the divorce with my husband through our lawyers. The divorce was finalized, and we agreed that he would pay emotional distress compensation and child support in a lump sum. "Thank you. Now I can finally begin a new chapter in my life," I said, feeling relieved. "But all at once? Wouldn't it be better in installments?" I suggested to my husband regarding the lump sum payment. "It has been. I ended up taking on even more debt, borrowing money from some shady loan shark," he admitted. "I don't know what happened to him after that, and honestly, I don't care," I replied, feeling detached from his struggles. After being evicted from her rental property and losing all her savings to pickpockets, my mother-in-law ended up homeless upon her return to the U.S. My daughter and I embarked on our new life. It wasn't always easy, but being free from my husband and mother-in-law, we could look to the future with hope. I wanted to live happily, working together with my daughter, who had saved me from the depths of despair.